We're going to take apart this Trace Elemental Elements Xplorer. First thing we're going to do is get this instrument into its service mode by going to the visual devices, hitting Explorer, and we're going to put the shutter into its service position. We want to put it in its service position before we turn everything off. So right now I'm only at 500 since I shut it down not too long ago, rather than the 1000 C that it's normally at. So I'm going to put shutter into service position, hit execute while that's plugged in. Then the shutter is going to come out. That's where it's going to stop, and that's where we want it to stay. Then we can start shutting everything off. I don't want it to get too hot. I already have the USB, the computer cable, USB part unplugged, so I'm going to take the power off, set this aside. I've already got my stand over here. Unscrew a little bit. This will slide out. Be very careful. The stand, one will sit, the other one will crimp on. So I'm going to go underneath, attach it, and using my fingers, pry it up, and set that aside. Now we can come over here, unplug the instrument so that furnace doesn't get too hot. Unplug this. This will slide. Put my fingers here. I'm going to lift it up and take this ground strap off. This will be the only limiting factor in raising this. Couple things you're going to want to check out initially is this dryer tube right here, this permatube. This permatube right here is going to come out, and even though it's brown, the brown is fine. We just don't want it to be really black and cooked all into here. But, and again, the frit, we always want to check the frit all the time to make sure the frit's going to catch stuff. We'll put that into a 550 oven and let it burn out all the soot. So yeah, that's just the gasket. Always want to make sure the gasket goes back on there. There's only just a tad bit of coking in there in mine. I'm gonna go ahead and just put this back on real quick. Get that one in there. All right, that's tight. So now following, the way the flow is going to be, we've got our argon is the red, oxygen is going to be the blue. It's going to go into this shutter, and it's going to go into this, I believe it's the oxygen accelerator, and the argon is going to go through the middle, and I believe the oxygen is going to come on the outside of this flask, and then it's going to come all the way down into the combustion tube. And through the combustion tube, everything's going to go through at the furnace at 1000 C. Then it's going to come in through this outer end. We've got this hose right here. So while I'm already here, I'm going to disconnect this. So we've got, I believe it's, argon should be at about 100 mils a minute, and the oxygen should be 300 mils a minute. So that should be around 400 mils a minute. That's going into the system, and then this is going to be the auxiliary oxygen that's coming in after the furnace, or the posterior of it. And then we're going to have, this is going to have 100 mils a minute. So we've got 3, 4, 500 total mils a minute going through the system. So here, post the on the back side of the furnace, everything that's coming out through here, through the permatube, coming out to the frit, when we measure it here, we should have a minimum of 500 mils a minute. So I'm gonna start taking some of this stuff apart. So I also disconnected the oxygen and the argon, but beforehand. So there is no oxygen or argon flowing through the system. So I'm going to unplug this. This is going to be the oxygen while I'm already right here. Then I'm going to take these lines out. I'm just going to depress this, and it's going to unclip and close off those lines. Now this can actually be picked up. It might be a little hot, but you wiggle it a little bit. This is this part where it sets in. So this actually can be set to the side right here. With that sitting aside, be very careful, it is still glass. I can come in here and now pull off. I need to take these parts off first before I can get to the combustion tube. I'm gonna find which one I used. Set that aside. Set that aside in order. Then I can come in here to the combustion tube. The part that we want to check is these. There's two back pieces. There's one right here and there's one right here that are going to fit inside. So at the back end of the furnace, at the combustion tube, we'll see it's going to have two male fittings coming out. Then we're going to have two female fittings, and the female fittings are the ones that are possible to break, which we've had break before over here in Corpus. So I'm gonna unscrew these. And there's one over here too. See if I can't. So, a little feel. I'm slowly gonna slide this out. This is still probably gonna be hot. Last time I checked, it was 500 C in the oven. So, gonna come out nice and straight without disturbing anything. And this is the combustion tube. So this is the part, or these are the two male ends that are going to meet up with the female fittings on this section right here. So I'm gonna gently lay this aside. We want to visually inspect this too to make sure that there are no cracks or anything in this. If there are cracks, that's where we could lose some flow. I know ours is new, so I'm not going to have any, but make sure you can check your combustion tube. Gently lay it down. Now with that off, take this screw out as well. Now we can have more access to this right here. When I have access to this, the easiest way to do it is I'm going to first unscrew this fitting. Be careful because this part is glass. I'm sure it's quartz. It's not actually glass. Okay, this is still a little hot. Let me see if I can get something. Just need to apply a little bit of pressure. Just give a little wiggle. This one's on there pretty good. Actually, there it is. So I'm just using my finger right here. Boom. Now this right here is all of the perm tube. Now a brand new one would look like this. This is a dryer. So this is the same exact thing. The only difference is this insulated jacket right here would be, you'd have to take this piece off and slide the new jacket into place. Other than that, that's a brand new one right there. Now we're going to slide this off. To slide this off, now there's going to be one screw in the back. That screw is going to come out. can lift, and we want to lift up because there's a set screw in here, that a screw that it sits on. If you look down there, there is a screw right here that goes into this groove that this sits on, so it can get into place. So now we have this. We've got our two tubes right here, our female fittings. Now we're gonna have to take this apart too, but you can more than likely, if there's gonna be a crack, it's gonna be from right here, and that's where you can definitely lose some flow. But we're gonna go ahead and take this apart in case you actually do need to change one out. So the first thing I'll do is I'll unscrew this right here for that auxiliary oxygen. That would be off on the side. I'm gonna unscrew. There's gonna be 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. This one was busted earlier, so that's why I only have 3. But these are all just gonna be Phillips heads. Still a little hot for mine. That aside, get my rag again. Now this actually will just slide up. And separate. Now you can really see these 2 pieces. They're 2 individual tubes. This is the tube right here that comes off to the side. This is where the oxygen goes in. And then the next one is the one that's coming off the combustion tube. Ours is a little dirty, but it still works just fine. We're not having any flow issues or really any soot issues, so it's not broken right now, so we're not gonna fix it. And then how these sit in here, I could probably take this off for you. I'll just take this one off. These sit on these little springs right here, so I could actually just lift it up. I don't need to screw these in. So this has a side right here that this can slide out, but these just kind of sandwich it in place. But the springs are for when the combustion tube male end sits in there. You can put enough pressure on here, but then it's a spring action to make it a good seal. And it kind of gives it a little play, so you're not cracking any sort of glassware. So these screws are going to fit on the inside of this spring. These are the 2 parts you want to check to make sure that they're cracked. More than likely they're going to be cracked right here. So that's one thing I would those are the 2 things I would check. And now I'm going to make a separate video to put it back together.